Okay, here's what I used. I used the Hampton Bay LED color changing spotlights. This comes in a 3-pack. I also used the Hampton Bay transformer, and I got the 120 watt size, and they do come in different sizes depending on the wattage you're going to need. And then I also used the 12-2 landscape cable. So you're also going to need some electrical tape, scissors to cut that tape. I highly recommend liquid electrical tape. Also, you'll need a screwdriver. You'll need something to strip the insulation and trim wires. And then you're going to need a power drill with the appropriate bit to mount the transformer. I use these LED color changing lights. These are Bluetooth enabled and can connect to your Wi-Fi. Each light draws about 10 watts of energy and will give you about 450 lumens of light. You control each light through an app, and you can control each light individually, both in terms of color and in terms of on-off position. Each light will give you either a cool or a warm white, but also can give you a variety of different colors in case you're wanting to change things up for the season. So the quality of these lights is actually pretty decent. They're made of metal, so I think they'll be pretty durable. The light itself does have an arm that allows you to swivel the light so that you can angle that however you'd like. There's a connector at the end of the light that snaps onto the landscape cable. And then there's a stake that it comes with that you screw into the base of the light, and this is obviously for placement into the ground. I placed my lights where I felt they would best accent my house. I don't have any lighting design experience, so I really just did the best I could. And in the next step, we'll talk about this, but what I did is I allowed for extra cable at each light so that I could move that light and make adjustments in the future. I used 12-2 cable. The 12 represents the gauge of the cable. The lower the number is, the larger the gauge is, and the larger the gauge is, the more amps it can handle. The second number of the 12-2, 2 just means that there are 2 of these types of wires within the cable itself. This chart came with the transformer, and it's helping you to select the cable size. As you look at the chart, you'll notice that as the wattage increases or as the cable length increases, so does the required gauge of the cable. For my setup, I plan on putting 6 to 7 of those spotlights on one line, so it's only 60 to 70 watts because again each light takes 10 watts, but my cable length is very long, and so I went ahead and erred on the side of caution and selected a larger gauge cable. So this is the area that I'm actually going to mount my transformer. You can see that there's an outlet there. That's where I'm going to plug it in. And as I run my line here along each of the lights, I actually left a copious amount of extra cable. And I have a 150-foot span that I'm crossing, but I got a 200-foot wire. And if I put 7 lights on that line, that leaves me about 7 feet of extra cable per light, so that if I have to make adjustments, I have plenty of room to do that. So in connecting the lights to the cable, the instructions do recommend leaving about 1 foot of cable after the last fixture. I capped the end of the cable with electric tape. You'll notice that your connector actually has 2 parts. One part or one side encloses the prongs that will actually pierce the landscape cable, and the second half of the connector is where the landscape cable snaps in. The cable should be flat in the connector and not off kilter, just to make sure you've got a good connection. Once you have that landscape cable in place, you're going to snap each half of the connector together, ensuring full contact. Next, the manufacturer does recommend wrapping each connector with electric tape to protect the connector from exposure to the elements. A good friend of mine did also recommend using liquid electric tape, and I did do that to sort of seal those very ends where I couldn't get to it with the electric tape. I would recommend before you take this step to actually complete the whole process first in case you have a malfunctioning light so you don't have to undo all this work you just did. I selected this 120 watt transformer because I only intend to connect 7 lights at about 10 watts each. So actually I only need a 70 watt transformer, but it's better to size up a bit to ensure that you have adequate voltage along your entire cable. If you don't do that, this could lead to your lights not being bright enough or maybe even flickering in the lights. And just for comparison, in terms of different light fixtures, a halogen bulb will typically require much more wattage to give you the same amount of lumens as an LED bulb. So on that same 120 watt transformer, I could maybe put 250 watt halogen fixtures versus like 11 10 watt LEDs and get the same lumen from each fixture. So on the back of your transformer, you'll notice that there are 3 different sections. These are the 3 taps that you'll connect your wires to. The COM tap is the neutral tap that you'll connect one, and then you have a choice between a 12 volt and a 15 volt tap. I selected the 15 volt tap just for a higher voltage output. So next I took my cable and prepared it by separating the 2 wires, and then I exposed about a 1/2 inch by removing that insulation, and I twisted each wire on itself, and then I curled the wire to fit the screw, since I will be screwing each one of these wires onto one of those taps that we talked about earlier. Okay, so after that, I just plugged in my transformer to make sure it and my lights worked. And this is the step that once you ensure is complete, you can go back and wrap your connectors with electrical tape. Okay, so mounting the transformer is pretty standard. I will say that the transformer did come with a very handy template to help you know where to put your drill holes. For this, because it went into brick, I used a 1/4 inch masonry bit, and here you can see my setup at the end. I try to make it as clean as possible. Fortunately for me, that plug is right in the corner, so I can kind of hide my transformer behind a plant. So hiding the cable for me was pretty simple because my lights are actually along an area that's mulched, and so I just had to pull back the mulch and then put it back over the cable when I was done. For some of you who may be laying these lights out in the middle of your yard, your trenching may be a little bit more complicated. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and that the installation of low voltage landscape lighting seems just a bit more doable. Y'all take care.